Okay, let's read.
Thank you, Yasmin. I'll read from there. For long after the individual has become partially free, a moral organism capable of conscious growth, aware of an inward life, eager for spiritual progress, society continues to be external in its methods, a material and economic organism, mechanical, more intent upon status and self preservation than on growth and self perfection. The greatest present triumph of the thinking and progressive individual over the instinctive and static society has been the power he has acquired by his thought will to compel it to think also, to open itself to the idea of social justice and righteousness, communal sympathy and mutual compassion, to feel after the rule of reason rather than blind custom as the test of its institution, and to look on the mental and moral assent of its individuals as at least one essential element in the validity of its laws. Ideally, at least, to consider light rather than force as its sanction, moral development and not vengeance or restraint as the object even of its penal action is becoming just possible to the communal mind. The greatest future triumph of the thinker will come when we can persuade the individual integer and the collective whole to rest the self life relation and its union and stability on a free and harmonious consent and self adaptation, and shape and govern the external by the internal truth rather than to constrain the inner spirit by the tyranny of the external form and structure.
Okay, so he is now coming to the moral standard, the third standard. The first standard is ego and personal needs and desires. You have to satisfy them to grow. Okay, it growth of an individual depends upon experience, and you have to pay attention to yourself. So that's the first level. Second level, for social harmony and social order and discipline, society sets in social laws. Now he is coming to the third one. Okay, so, for long after the individual has become partially free, because if he becomes fully free, then law number 4 will apply. So he is talking only of the partially free. So you have got spiritual experience and you have come down again into the physical world, but you have lost that liberation. Okay, this is what happens normally until you stabilize yourself in the higher consciousness. For long after the individual has become partially free, a moral organism capable of conscious growth, aware of an inward life, eager for spiritual progress, society continues to be external in its methods. And that's exactly our present condition. We have society continues to be external. How to solve the problem of cruelty, how to solve the problem of illiteracy, we are going on thinking of physical means. A material and economic organization. We feel that all these problems can be solved by very often by money. Okay, this is also what happens in society. Money will take care of it. Just get them to listen to ourselves by giving them money. Okay, this is the thing. But even development, see poverty, you remove poverty by building a house for them, ensuring that there is food. All these are material and economic organisms. In India, we recently in UP, all the poor people have been given houses. Okay, and so that at least improves their economic condition. Then in our schools, India was one of the first, I think, to introduce midday meals for children in government schools, and that was appreciated very much by all over the world, because India was a very, very badly malnourished country. All children had malnourishment. But the idea of giving a free midday meal to children was very much appreciated all over. So that also is an economic organization. Mechanical, okay, but more intent upon status and self-preservation than on growth and self-perfection. So we are thinking only of improving things, but it is still the same standards remain. The greatest present triumph of the thinking and progressive individual over the instinctive and static society. Static society because customs are blindly followed without thought. Okay, so this is also what happened, and that always happens when a new idea is introduced. Slowly, the new pattern continues to exist, but the spirit is lost. Okay, exactly like you may decide one day that every day I'll go to the samadhi and bow down. Okay? You continue to do that. It's a good habit, but finally it becomes mechanical. Okay, when you are going there and bowing down, you are thinking of something else. The real spirit is gone. So this is also what happens in society. With good intentions, the government introduces something, but it becomes mechanical and only self-preservation. The greatest present triumph of the thinking and progressive individual over the instinctive and static society. That's why I gave you this idea, instinctive and static society, has been the power he has acquired by his thought will to compel it to think also, to open itself to the idea of social justice and righteousness, communal sympathy and mutual compassion, to feel after the rule of reason rather than blind custom, as a test of its institutions, and to look on the mental and moral ascent of its individuals as at least one essential element in the validity of its laws. Okay? It's a very big sentence, but what Sandhu is saying is that we are forcing people to change their attitudes. It's taking a long time. So, someone once told me that if you want to change some old, new types of, if you want to change the old habits into new forms, it takes 2 or 3 generations to introduce the new system. Okay, but sometimes it takes even longer. For instance, take the case of in India the treatment of Shudras, okay, the untouchables. It has still not gone after 75 years of independence. It is still very much practiced. So, static society, that's what happens. Okay? I remember one program, there was this boy, Amir Khan, who had this Satyameva Jayate series of serials. And in there, he had once invited the COP members from Punjab. Okay? And they insisted that they won't follow the constitution of equality and freedom, but they will follow their own system. So, so even with the best of intentions, this static society cannot be changed very easily. They were arguing. They said, no, our system is better than your constitution. We don't believe in freedom. The girls must marry according to our wishes. The boys also cannot do anything which we don't approve of. So this is it. Even in South India also, inter-caste marriage is forbidden. Okay, you can't. And it goes to the extent of even murder. Even today. Yes, a couple of days ago there was a case, a murder case. And sometimes it goes as far as the family members themselves. Honor killing, they call it. Okay. So the idea of freedom, the idea of your own choice, all those things don't count. So these are better ideas, but it still doesn't count. This is what Sandhu is saying. At least you are thinking about them. Okay? They are thinking about them and trying to change. Open the idea of social justice and righteousness. Social justice and righteousness is certainly not the way we practice caste system in India. Okay? Nor the village administrations. We don't. Okay? Communal sympathy and mutual compassion. To feel after the rule of reason rather than blind custom as a test of its institutions, and to look upon the mental and moral ascent of the individuals as at least one essential element in the validity of its laws. So even when you pass laws saying everybody has the right to education, for instance, in the Muslim community, they don't believe in that. The women have their places in the kitchen and nowhere else. They don't agree. So these are they force the women to wear the hijab and cover their whole body with black cloth. Okay, so these are all impositions and restrictions which are not at all reasonable nor are they based on justice and righteousness. Okay, so that's what Sandhu is saying. Takes a long time. But at least some amount of forcing the individuals to think along these new lines is there. That's what it is. It's a time before morality is fully established, but it's trying to be established. The third law. Okay. Ideally, at least, to consider light rather than force as a sanction. Moral development and not vengeance or restraint as the object even of its penal action is becoming just possible to the communal mind. This is the problem which is still very much there. And when we read this, I ask the children, what do you think? A murderer, okay, or a rapist, that is more common, okay. So, should he be put to death, which is the penal action, okay, vengeance and penal action, or should we use the idea of compassion, okay? So, what should be done? Most of the children insist, okay, when I was in teaching in knowledge, what do you think should be done? They no, the rapist should be killed. He should be hanged because he is a threat to society. But the other idea is there also that criminals are to be treated with compassion. They should be taught the right way. Okay? That's the reason why in Europe the capital punishment has been banned. So there it is effective, but here in India and America, the two biggest democracies in the world, capital punishment is still very much there. In America, it's even worse, very, very bad because the criminals are treated very badly in the jails. In India, the change is beginning to come, and the judiciary nowadays, they give the death punishment very, very rarely. Okay? So things are changing. That's what Sindhu is saying. It's just beginning to change. Ideally, at least, to consider light rather than force as a sanction. Moral development and not vengeance or restraint as the object, even of its penal action, okay, legal action, is becoming just possible to the communal mind, just beginning. Okay. Still, the old customs are continuing to exist, which are contrary to reason and to universal justice. Okay. All these things are not at all there. The greatest future triumph of the thinker will come when he can persuade the individual integer and the collective whole to rest their life action and its union and stability upon a free and harmonious consent and self-adaptation. So, both should agree about the way we have to achieve this, the solution to this problem. It's not easy. Which is more important, society or the individual? So some viability has to be found, but it cannot be found so long as you are in the ignorance. Only when you go to a spiritual level of consciousness can it be solved. And so it will never be solved fully at the lowest level of ignorance. It cannot be solved. The greatest future triumph of the thinker will come when he can persuade the individual integer and the collective whole to rest their life relation and its union and stability upon a free and harmonious consent. Even if something is achieved, it breaks down after a certain amount of time. Okay? The pact between the individual and society does not always work. Free and harmonious consent and self-adaptation. Self-adaptation. There should be no third intervention. Both should agree. Self-adaptation. And shape and govern the external by the internal truth. Psychologically, it should be based on truth and justice, and love and compassion, and not punishment. That's the whole idea. That is the reason why there is so much of freedom in the ashram. Okay? Not only in the ashram, but in the school also. Whereas, the fact that humanity is not yet ready for that is shown by the way the freedom is misused, unfortunately. That's the whole part. Given freedom, it is misused. So, still, it is a step forward. One harmonious and internal truth rather than constraint, the inner spirit, by the tyranny of the external form and structure. Tyranny is using a very strong word, tyranny of the external form. You force the individual to listen to these social conditions and social rules. Okay, we go to the next para. But even the success that he has gained, let's see what he has to say.
Shall I
Yes,
read?
yes, go ahead.
But even this success that he has gained is rather a thing in potentiality than in actual accomplishment. There is always a disharmony and a discord between the moral law in the individual and the law of his needs and desires, between the moral law proposed to society and the physical and vital needs, desires, customs, prejudices, interests, and passions of the caste, the clan, the religious community, the society, the nation. The moralist erects in vain his absolute ethical standard and calls upon all to be faithful to it without regard to consequences. To him, the needs and desires of the individual are invalid if they are in conflict with the moral law, and the social law has no claims upon him if it is opposed to his sense of right and denied by his conscience. This is his absolute solution for the individual, that he shall cherish no desire and claims that are not consistent with love, truth, and justice. He demands from the community or nation that it shall hold all things cheap, even its safety and its most pressing interest, in comparison with truth, justice, humanity, and the highest good of the people.
The peoples. So, this is what he's saying, that morality is certainly better than simply social law. Social law is external. Morality is psychologically superior because we are thinking of what is right and what is wrong. So, but does it work? He's saying it doesn't work much. Okay? Because human nature is very complex. It's not that simple. So, I'm reading each sentence. But even this success, which success? The success to force human beings to think according to reason and justice, universal justice and universal compassion, rather than punishment by laws. Okay? In fact, it goes, in India at least we have reasonable laws, but in Islam, if you are a thief, your hand is cut off. If you are a, if you have gone outside the laws of marriage, you are stoned to death. So just imagine, they are still at that level. But it has become slightly better. You don't cut anybody's hand, but you put them in jail, okay? Or give them a punishment. So that's what Swami is saying. Even this success, okay, is potential rather than accomplished. Actually, it is not yet fully enforced. Hardly can we say that universal justice exists. Hardly can we say that everybody is treated with compassion and love instead of punishment. We can't say that. Yes. In fact, in the ashram, punishment is not even there. Okay? There is no punishment. When you do something wrong, you just explain the thing. But there is no punishment. Very rarely, I can't think of anybody being thrown out of the school because of wrong actions. They are explaining things. So it's an attempt. But as I said, mankind is not yet ready for that because this is misinterpreted. Compassion is misinterpreted as weakness. That's the whole point. And lack of discipline and order. Even the success is more potential than actual. There is always a disharmony and a discord between the moral law in the individual and the law of his needs and desires, between the moral law proposed to society and the physical and vital needs, desires, customs, prejudices, interests and passions of the caste, clan, religious community, the society, the nation. So he has shown you the various degrees of the collectivity. There is a caste, there is a clan, the religious community is very much there. Okay? Very much. Oh, he belongs to us. Okay? I remember once I was going on the East Coast Road to Marathon, which is about 30 kilometers away on a cycle. And I got a puncture settled. And it was in an area where Muslims were there. And that particular day I had a little beard, okay. And all the Muslims of that area, they came, okay, and told us, oh, we have to help him because he is our community. Fortunately, they helped me and my puncture got repaired and I could continue my journey. But they helped me because I was part of their community. So this thinking is still very much there. Okay? Even in the Christians, okay, it is very much there. So it's there everybody, but less and more, that's all. The moralist erects in vain, hardly successful. The moralist erects in vain his absolute ethical standard and calls upon all to be faithful to it without regard to consequences. Okay? You have to be just. You have to punish the wrong. You have to do all these things. You cannot tell a lie. You cannot kill somebody else. Okay? All sorts of rules and regulations. And sometimes the consequences are very disastrous. Okay? We can think out your own examples with this. Okay? For instance, if someone is, I remember once in Delhi, about 20-25 years ago, there was a so-called religious guru, okay, who was a fraud. I don't remember the name now, but he was a fraud. Okay? He used to, he had huge following. And when he was arrested, there were riots in Delhi. 20,000 came from all the villages and all that, and there were riots in Delhi. I don't remember, unfortunately, I don't remember the name of that fellow, but this is what happened. So you are doing your social duty by arresting the man, but the consequences are disastrous, okay? Even worse. So this is what Shendra is saying, that the moralist always says, you must follow the rules that I am telling you. No lies, no this thing, no that thing, all. You must absolutely follow this. But there are consequences. You have to think of the consequences also. To him, the needs and desires of the individual are invalid. Who is the him? The moralist. To him, no individual has a right to fulfill his desires if they infringe upon other people's freedoms. Okay? So the needs and desires of the individual are invalid if they are in conflict with the moral law. And the social law has no claims upon him if it is opposed to his sense of right and denied by his conscience. The problem is, the sense of right is often wrong. That's the whole idea. Okay? Even today, the people say that the women, their sense of right is they should hide their face and they should not wear skimpy clothes. That's a sense of right. Okay? So you impose it on others and denied by his conscience. This is his absolute solution, the moralist. This is his absolute solution for the individual, that he shall cherish no desires and claims that are not consistent with love, truth and justice. Sounds very good, but it's not always. You can think out examples where this is not always the right thing. Okay? He demands from the community or nation that it shall hold all things cheap, even its safety and its most pressing interests in comparison with truth, justice, humanity, and the highest good of all peoples. So, does it work? Sriyamdo will tell you that it doesn't work at all, because human nature is very strong and the vital is 10 times more powerful than the mind. The mind can come up with all sorts of reasons, but they never succeed fully. To a certain extent, it may succeed, or not. The vital will always triumphs. Try to control your vital with your mind, and you will see that you can do that very little. Okay, so we go to the next paragraph. Okay. No individual rises to these heights. What's the time? 27. We can read one more paragraph. Who can read? Sunki, you have not read for a long time.
I will read.
Yeah, go ahead, read. No individual rises.
No individual rises to these heights except in intense moments. No society yet created satisfies this ideal. And in the present state of morality and of human development, none perhaps can or ought to satisfy it. Nature will not allow it. Nature knows that it should not be. The first reason is that our moral ideals are themselves, for the most part, ill-evolved, ignorant, and arbitrary mental constructions rather than transcriptions of the eternal truth of the Spirit. Authoritative and dogmatic, they assert certain absolute standards in theory, but in practice, every existing system of ethics proves either in application unworkable or is in fact a constant coming short of the absolute standard to which the ideal pretends. If our ethical system is a compromise or a makeshift, it gives at once a principle of justification to the further sterilizing compromises which a society and the individual hasten to make with it. And if it insists on absolute love, justice, right, with an uncompromising insistence, it soars above the head of human possibility and is professed with lip homage but ignored in practice. Even it is found that it ignores other elements in humanity which equally insist on survival but refuse to come within the moral formula. For just as the individual law of desire contains within it invaluable elements of the infinite whole, which have to be protected against the tyranny of the absorbing social idea, the innate impulses to both of individual and of collective man contain in them invaluable elements which escape the limits of any ethical formula, yet discovered and are yet necessary to the fullness and harmony of an eventual divine protection.
This is a very interesting para.
Perfection, sorry.
Very interesting para, and very deep. You have to think about what he's saying, so we'll look at it. We have got time. We have got 10 minutes. We'll just go through it. Moreover, first of all, he has told us that moral laws nobody is following. Even if they agree to it, by lip service they are paying, but they will never follow. Okay, not everybody, but very rarely are they followed. You are told not to steal, but you will continue to steal. You are told not to tell lies, but you will continue to tell lies. Okay. Moreover, absolute love, absolute justice, absolute right reason, in their present application, by bewildered and imperfect humanity, come easily to be conflicting principles. Okay? Now that's the whole point. Where there are dualities in the physical world and both have to be taken into account. For instance, he is giving examples. Justice often demands what love abhors. This is exactly the problem of we have the problem of the justice. Okay, a criminal has to be punished. That's what justice demands. But love abhors. Love says, no, try and use compassion and try and reform him. Be compassionate. Give love, not punishment. So these are opposite things. Then right reason, dispassionately considering the facts of nature and human relations in search of a satisfying normal rule, is unable to admit without modification either any reign of absolute justice or any reign of absolute love. There is no solution if man is in ignorance. I'll give you 2-3 other examples also of how they are conflicting principles, and therefore you have no solution at all to the problem of in the problem of harmony in the physical world. Take, for instance, discipline and freedom. It's well known that freedom is a very important principle. You must be able to, if freedom is not there, the individual can never demand himself. Not only that, even at the social level, okay, freedom is very important. That's why the democracy is so much appreciated, not the authoritative dictatorships. So, freedom is necessary. But what about discipline? They are opposites. Okay? If you use too much of your freedom, you may be breaking the laws, and discipline is also necessary. So that's what Srimati is saying, that these absolute justice and absolute moral ideals don't take into account the subtleties of human life. Okay? They're too complex. You can't say you must do this, you must do that. You can't say that. A very simple example is that, okay, sometimes you have to tell a lie with a good intention to save somebody. Okay? So that was very possible. I'll just give you one example. Yes. Then, right reason, dispassionately considering facts of nature and human relations, in search of a satisfying norm or rule, is unable to admit, without modification, either any reign of absolute justice, it doesn't exist, absolute justice, nor any reign of absolute love. And in fact, man's absolute justice easily turns out to be, in practice, a sovereign injustice. This is what we have seen very, very often. Okay, that is the reason why in many countries they have removed the capital punishment. It's a well-known fact that a criminal is not a criminal and yet he is punished, okay, because of circumstantial evidence. So this is something that is justice can become injustice. Okay? This is the whole idea. Okay? A sovereign injustice. For his mind, one-sided and rigid in its constructions, puts forward a one-sided, partial and rigorous scheme or figure and claims for it totality and absoluteness and an application that ignores the subtle truth of things and the plasticity of life. I remember also one case I'll tell you how there was a gentleman in Bihar who said that he must control his sexual urges. So, but what happened was that he was going on failing every time. But he was very honest. And every time he failed, he sent a telegram to Swami. Okay? Now, after 10 times or 20 times, Swami could very well tell him, if justice had been there, you are not fit for yoga, you better stop. But never did that. He went on encouraging him. There's a whole stack of telegrams, okay, about 50 telegrams in the archives department. All these telegrams are from him, telling him, I have failed again. Please help me. Please help me. So it doesn't work. But you can't punish someone for that. You have to take subtler aspect because you are seeing that he is capable of changing himself. So you become compassionate. Okay. So this is what Swami is saying. Okay. A rigorous scheme or figure and claims for totality and absoluteness in application that ignores the subtle truth of things, subtler truth of things and the plasticity of life. Life is too complex to be put into clear rules and regulations. You can't do that. All rules and regulations fail. There are always exceptions are there. All our standards turn into action, either waver, all our standards turned into action, either waver, hesitate on a flux of compromising or err by this partiality and unelastic structure. So you have to you have to sometimes compromise. Humanity sways from one orientation to another. The race moves upon a zigzag path led by conflicting claims and on the whole works out instinctively what nature intends, but with much waste and suffering rather than either what it desires or what it holds to be right or what the highest light from above demands from its embodied spirit. The problem of these dualities is very complex and that cannot be solved by morality. So you have to go above morality. That's the whole idea. So today we stop here. And what he's saying is very interesting. He's saying that nature will not allow these absolute ideas to be practiced. Why? Because all our mental ideas are imperfect. However wonderful they may sound, okay, they are imperfect. Take for instance the truth. Your idea of truth is not at all correct, because even falsehood is a step towards truth, as Hindu says. Okay? Error is a handmaiden of truth. He said that so clearly earlier. He said it's because of mistakes and because of errors that you correct yourself. So how can you say that you should never make a mistake? You have to learn from mistakes. So this is what he's saying all the time. Error is the handmaiden of truth. They always go together. So you have to be very plastic in your understanding of things. Okay, so
Excuse me, but
yeah,
why did you skip one whole paragraph which Sunki read and jump to the next paragraph?
Yes, yes.
I did that because I
Yeah,
understand.
because Sunki read, no individual rises to these heights.
I'll
But
tell you.
you started reading from the next paragraph.
Yeah, I'll tell you because when I'm seeing on a small tablet, the continuity is not very clear as in a book. Okay, the book is very clear. I have the whole 2 pages, but here I have not even a full page. That's why I'm very sorry for what happened. But
Uh-huh.
we'll correct it next time. Okay, we'll correct it. What? Because sometimes my computer, the little tablet misbehaves and jumps. That's one of the reasons also when it happens. Okay. And I have the whole idea of what he's saying in the chapter, so I lose
Yes.
track of what is being said. I'm very sorry. So next time we'll see what we have escaped. We'll do that. Who individual rises is what we have to.
Yes. I will make note like that.
Okay. So
Let me
okay,
go.
okay, we have to
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Au revoir.
Thank you, Ragada.
Thank you, Rangana.